Well, hello there, and you join us to talk about watches, but not just any old watches. These are the watches of the Star Wars universe. Tom, a little birdie told me that you're quite a fan of the Star Wars.
I'm a fan of like 10% of the films, I think.
And it is shrinking daily.
I used to be all in. I used to be a bit of a lore hound when it comes to Star Wars.
Well, if you want to talk about lore, then how about adding to the canon? Because we're going to take a look at the watches that the Star Wars characters probably should have worn. You don't see a whole lot of timekeeping in Star Wars, and I think that's a mistake. So why don't we pick out some of our favourite characters and issue them with a new watch? Shall we start with a little fella, a little rascal by the name of Luke Skywalker?
Now, I've gone for episode 4, Shorty Robe Luke, when he was living with his aunt and uncle on the desert. Even as a youngster, he was a heck of a pilot, so I've gone for a pilot's watch, and I've gone specifically for the IWC Big Pilot's Watch Top Gun Edition Mojave Desert. I think this would go really well on Tatooine, and I think it'd complement his shorty robe quite nicely. He's got those khaki slacks and those boot wraps, and this just, popping under that big billowy cuff is going to look very nice. Plus, being a pilot, bullseyeing womp rats or whatever he does, he'd need the functionality and legibility of a pilot's watch, and so what better than an IWC? And also, you could imagine that this would be something that Obi-Wan would gift him, along with his father's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Here's your father's IWC watch, which he wore during World War II and the Clone Wars.
And then he'd go on to Reddit and say, I've been left this watch, and everyone would tell him it was fake.
Yeah, some crazy old wizard left me this watch. How much is it worth?
I think this is the perfect watch because it's also has that lovely, lovely matte finish, so you're not going to glint and let any Tusken Raiders know your whereabouts as you're noodling around in the desert, finding your dead aunt and uncle and all that kind of business.
Yeah, cruising in your land speeder.
Exactly, yeah. Tom, you've gone for a period when we all loved and enjoyed blue milk before discovering where it actually came from. I'm thinking more about Luke a little bit further down the line. He's learnt about the Force, he started to harness that, he started to believe. This is the Seiko Flightmaster, which is a watch that is absolutely packed with information for every pilot. Just like the X-Wing is packed with all of those graphic displays that help the pilot do their job. Now, Luke would wear this, if only to completely ignore it and be all like, I don't need to, I can use the Force now, I don't have to read these numbers, I'm just going to guess what the time is. Because I think that's very appropriate for him to be able to show off just how much he doesn't need that information.
I really like this. I think this is, looking at the dial, it looks like the sort of readouts that they were using to monitor the Death Star's proximity to their base, you know?
Yeah.
It looks as esoteric as that. You could almost see those subdials kind of overlapping as their doom was becoming more and more imminent.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could push a button and it would say, stay on target. It looks like it could. Yeah, it's a great choice.
Tom, moving on to a fearsome character in the Star Wars universe. This is Princess Leia Organa. What watch would you strap on this fair princess's wrist?
I'm going for diplomatic Leia here. This isn't when she's fighting her way out of the detention block. This is her, when she's leading the Republic or something like that. So I've gone for a Omega Constellation. It's a very elegant piece, and it's in a really nice shimmering blue with diamonds and small seconds. And I think that would evoke the cool blue waters of her lush home planet Alderaan. Before it was obliterated. But yeah, I think this would be her watch of choice. Yeah, I mean, it works as well. What with it being Constellation Wars, I think it just fits really well. Yeah.
Hand in boot. Tom, I've gone for a very similar approach to you, and perhaps that says more about us and our view on the world than it does about anything else. I have chosen the Tudor Royal. Now, do you see what I did there?
I think I did, yeah. You've equated the word princess to royalty. So royal, Tudor, love it.
Oh, no. You've misunderstood. I'm thinking it's more about the fact that Tudor is very closely related to a very well-known watch brand, Rolex.
Right.
And they're probably a little bit more intimate than you would expect, which is exactly the relationship that Leia and Luke have in the films. So I've gone for this Tudor Royale with a lovely, lovely mother of pearl dial. It looks very deliberately like the shattered remains of Alderaan, and I think it's just a stern reminder to her why she is fighting the cause. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure I liked much of what I heard there, but yeah, nice watch.
Moving very quickly on to Han Solo, Tom, our roguish and beloved smuggler.
Yes.
The guy who traverses the universe not making very many friends, who stands on the tail of people he owes money to in the updated, edited versions of the film. What would he wear on his wrist?
So I'm thinking he's a smuggler, he's a bit of a rogue, pilot of the fastest ship in the galaxy, so he's going to need a tachymeter scale. And the best watch out there with a tachymeter scale is the Daytona. I think this would really contrast. He's got that sort of white shirt, black waistcoat thing going on, so I think that'd work well with the black and white panda dial of the Daytona. It's often been nicknamed the Stormtrooper, hasn't it, as well, the Daytona, so I think he'd kind of like that. It'd sort of be him taking the mick out of the Empire there by wearing one of their watches. So yeah, it's kind of racy, it's sporty, it's a little bit dangerous, all like Han Solo. And but the kicker is, I think he'd wear a fake one because he'd like to show off, but he couldn't actually afford a Rolex. But he'd wear a fake one because he's a bit of a pirate. And perhaps on the back he would have engraved
"Fly in space carefully, me."
Yeah, sure.
I like what you've done there. I've probably gone a little bit more down the line on this one. I've picked a Zin 140 STS, also known as the Space Chronograph, because my imagination clearly doesn't stretch as far as yours. This is an all-black PVD'd chronograph with two central chronograph hands for seconds and minutes, which I think both look like lightsabers going etc. And generally I think this is the kind of roguish tactical gear that would sit very nicely on his wrist alongside a ropey blaster or some other kind of grappling tool. He would bash this thing up, it would peel all the black off of it, and you'd see it all patchy, but it would still look really good, and he'd look very sexy wearing it.
Yeah, he sure would.
Moving on to the lovable, roguish Pomeranian that is Chewbacca. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who needs to know the time, but we're going to give him a watch anyway, and what have you picked for him?
You might think that Panerai is all about the Italian Navy or whatever, but actually I think Panerai designed their watches for Chewbacca. Just look at it. Chewbacca has that bandolier, with has the shells for his crossbow thing. I think Panerai made that as well.
I always assumed it was spare capsules for his Pez dispenser.
Yeah, I think he's probably got all of these. He's got his keys in there, a bit of change.
Yeah.
Club cards.
Some blue tack.
Little pair of mini scissors. I think that bandolier was made by Panerai. I think you've got that worn leather strap. With this new Otto Gioni finishing, it almost looks like the used future of Star Wars, doesn't it? Like it's been blasted and bashed about in space, and that fits really well with that Star Wars aesthetic, I think. And also, Panerai would be, it'd look like a normal size watch on Chewbacca, I think. So that'd be really cool.
A nice big crown for him to get his Wookiee fingers around. Tom, I think you've done Chewbacca a bit of a disservice here. I think you have looked at him and judged him by his outer shell. You've judged the book by the cover. I think he's actually very heartfelt. He's very sensitive. And I think that he's the kind of Wookiee that would actually wear something like a Piaget Altiplano. Simple, elegant, rose gold, small sub-seconds, because he appreciates the details. He doesn't take his work home.
Yeah.
He has to do all of that flying around the galaxy being a smuggler, but when he gets home, when he puts on his Sunday best, I think he goes for a Piaget. I'm just saying, don't judge people by the way they look, Tom. It's not good.
So you think a 7-foot space bear would wear one of the thinnest, most elegant watches ever around?
Did I stutter?
Okay, yeah, no, I like that. I can. That would be great, wouldn't it? Under all that shaggy fur, he's actually got a Piaget.
When he reads it, though, he does have to sort of blow the hair off of it first. He's like,
yeah.
A watch for work and a watch for play. But how about the villain of the piece? Your friend and mine, Darth Vader. Originally from Yorkshire.
So I have gone for a whopping great Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Tourbillon. Now, there are several visual cues that I think tie in with Darth Vader's look very nicely. I like the octagonal shape of the bezel there, which I think is quite reminiscent of his famous TIE fighter cockpit there. I think that would please him there for watch to match car. You've got this black dial with these cutouts and these subdials and tourbillons and skeletonization there going on, which I think would match his whole kind of... It's more machine than man, you know, this is more movement than time in the same respect. And it's big and it's powerful, just like he is. So, and it's one of the coolest watches in the galaxy, and he's one of the most badass guys in the galaxy. So, yeah, of course he'd wear a Royal Oak.
The more I look at this watch, Tom, the more I realise it might be the most evil watch I've ever seen. Look at it. And the fact that you can see right down inside it. You've got all these external angles that are very imperial, and then inside it's like seeing the mechanism of Darth Vader. It's like that bit where you see his little hat go on and you're like, oh, he's horrible inside. Oh, look at all those bits.
And also, Darth Vader, he used to be good, and Audemars Piguet, they used to be good as well, so it sort of works there.
Maybe we'll bring them back one day. They'll sacrifice themselves to save Patek Philippe. Now, I've gone in a very different direction because I think that Darth Vader is less about showing off. That's the Emperor's thing. He's like, oh, look at my lightning fingers. Ooh, tickle, tickle.
Yeah.
I think Darth Vader is much more about getting stuff done.
Sure.
Down to business. No mucking about. So the watch I've chosen for him, all PVD'd of course, is an Apple Watch. Because one, he's a busy guy. He's got a lot of messages coming in and out. And that little box on his chest that can only do so much. He needs to see where's the TIE fighters going? Are there any life forms on that pod? No. Better not check it then. Fine.
Yeah.
But also, most of all, he suffers from an enormously debilitating respiratory illness. And the Apple Watch is going to help him overcome that. Tell him when to take a break, tell him when to sit down, when to stand up, when to do exercise. It's going to really help to bring the best out of him so he can really focus on his job of being an evil butthead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Apple Watch is evil and so is Darth Vader as well. That's an easy comparison. Yeah, I like that. That's a good choice, isn't it? Plus he could... do you get like hollow messages? Could he perhaps like FaceTime someone and throttle them via...
Via Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Yeah, excellent.
So there you have it. A bunch of watches for a bunch of Star Wars people. Do you think we got them right? Would you pitch something else? Let us know down in the comments below if you've got the perfect watches for these people. We really enjoyed doing this episode, so if you'd like to see more like this, please do like and subscribe, tell all of your friends, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.